The auctioneer's voice cut through the warehouse silence. What am I bid for lot 847, the Castellano collection, starting at $20 million? Nora pressed her back against the wall, her second-hand blazer suddenly too tight. $20 million. For tools that had sat in her studio apartment for 3 years, mocked by everyone who saw them. 3 years earlier the eviction notice was orange this time. Nora had collected them in 3 colors now: yellow, pink, orange. This one gave her 48 hours. She sat on the fire escape of her 4th-floor walk-up, looking at the $67.23 in her checking account, and calculated. Bus fare to work, $5.50 daily. Box of pasta, $1.29. Emma's school lunch account needed $40 by Friday. The math didn't work. It never worked. Below, someone's car alarm shrieked. January wind cut through her thrift store coat. She was 29 years old, working breakfast shift at Morningside Diner and data entry from 2 to 10 p.m., and she couldn't keep a roof over her daughter's head. Her phone buzzed. Her sister Kristen. Mom says Grandpa Lou died. Lawyer reading, well, Thursday, 11 a.m. Can you make it? Or are you too busy being poor? Face blowing a kiss, Nora closed her eyes. Grandpa Lou. The last person who'd looked at her like she mattered. Before the divorce, before Marcus emptied their savings and vanished, before she became the family cautionary tale. She checked the bus schedule. Thursday she'd lose 4 hours of data entry pay. $58 she couldn't afford. But Grandpa Lou had driven 3 hours every birthday with grocery bags full of food he pretended were just extra. She'd go. The lawyer's office smelled like furniture polish and old carpet. Kristen arrived in Lululemon, fresh highlights catching the fluorescent light. Their brother Aaron wore a Rolex Nora knew their parents had bought him for closing his first real estate deal. Nora had come straight from the diner, syrup staining her sleeve. Thank you all for coming, the lawyer said, adjusting his glasses. Louis Castellano's estate is divided as follows. To Aaron Castellano, I leave my 2018 Silverado pickup truck and my coin collection, appraised at $48,000. Aaron grinned. The old man came through. To Kristen Walsh, I leave my savings bonds and investment portfolio, currently valued at approximately $73,000. Kristen actually squealed. Oh my God, that's the kitchen remodel. Brian will die. To Nora Chen, formerly Castellano. Nora felt their eyes shift to her. The sister who'd kept her married name like it could hold together what Marcus shattered. I leave the contents of my workshop, including all tools and equipment therein. Silence. Then Aaron laughed. The tools? The rusty toolbox. I mean, Kristen said, voice dripping false sympathy. At least you can sell them for scrap metal? That's something. The lawyer cleared his throat. There are approximately 4 toolboxes, various hand tools, and equipment. Mr. Castellano specified that all contents be kept together and examined carefully. Examined. Aaron snorted. They're rusty screwdrivers, Paul. Our grandfather was a mechanic for 40 years. Those tools are garbage. Nora said nothing. She'd learned silence protected her. Silence when Marcus told the judge she was too unstable for equal custody. Silence when her mother said if she'd just tried harder, kept her husband happy, she wouldn't be in this mess. Can I get them? She asked quietly. Storage unit key. The lawyer slid an envelope across the desk. Unit 447 at Secure Space on Hamilton. Rent is paid through the end of the month. After that, she'd owe $120 monthly for the privilege of storing junk. That evening, Nora stood in front of Unit 447 as sleet turned the parking lot to ice. The key turned with difficulty. The door rattled up. 4 massive red toolboxes sat against the back wall, each chest high and deep. Beside them, workbenches held rusty hand tools. Everything smelled like motor oil and old metal. Nora approached the first toolbox. It was a snap-on, a kind mechanic spent. Years paying off. The drawers opened stiffly. Wrenches, sockets, ratchets in 3 sizes. The second box held more of the same. Screwdrivers, pliers, everything coated in the patina of heavy use. The third box was locked. Nora checked the envelope. A smaller key, brass, worn smooth. It fit the lock on the third toolbox. The top drawer held specialty tools, instruments she didn't recognize. Precise, delicate, different. The second drawer held the same, tools that looked almost surgical. She checked her phone. 9:47 p.m. Emma's babysitter charged $15 an hour after 10. Nora closed the drawer, locked the box, and pulled the door down. On the bus home, squeezed between a sleeping teenager and a woman reading on her phone, Nora Googled vintage Snap-on toolbox value. The results range from $500 to $2,000 depending on condition. Maybe $6,000 total if she was lucky. Not enough for first month's rent anywhere. Not enough to matter. The eviction happened on a Tuesday. The marshal was apologetic but firm. Nora had 3 hours to remove what she could carry. Everything else would be stored, and she'd be charged daily. She loaded Emma's clothes, their photos, and vital documents into a friend's car. Everything else, their dishes, their books, Emma's toy kitchen, went into a pile on the sidewalk. They stayed with Nora's co-worker Linda that night, sharing a pull-out couch. Emma cried herself to sleep. Nora lay in the dark, holding her daughter, and made a decision. She'd sell the tools. All of them. Whatever they brought would be enough for a security deposit somewhere. A fresh start. The next morning, she called a tool dealer whose number she'd found online. "I've got 4 Snap-on toolboxes, full sets, from my grandfather's shop. What would you offer?" Pictures. She drove to the storage unit, Linda's car, Linda's gas, and photographed everything. She sent them from the parking lot. The dealer called back in 10 minutes. "Ma'am, that third toolbox. The locked one. Can you photograph the tools inside?" "Why?" "Just please. Open it and photograph the contents." Every drawer. Nora's hands shook as she unlocked it. She photographed each drawer carefully, sending them as she went. Her phone rang immediately. "Where did your grandfather get these?" "He was a mechanic." "What?" "These aren't mechanics tools, ma'am. That's a Leanhard chronometer adjustment set. That's a Daniels balance staff tool. These are," his voice cracked. "Do you know what these are?" "No. These are Swiss watchmaking tools. Master level. Some of these pieces haven't been manufactured since the 1940s. "Ma'am, I can't afford to buy these. You need to call someone else. You need to call." "Hold on." He texted her a number. "Westfield Horology Institute. Ask for Dr. Marcus Chen. Tell him what you have. Don't touch anything else." Nora sat in the storage unit, staring at the number, while sleet hammered the metal roof. Watchmaking tools. She thought of Grandpa Lou's thick fingers, always scarred from engine work. She thought of him in his garage, door closed, radio playing big band music. She thought of how he'd told her once, when she was small, that precision mattered more than strength. She dialed the number. Dr. Marcus Chen, no relation to her ex-husband, thankfully, arrived at the storage unit in a BMW that made the parking lot look shabbier. He was 50-something, wearing a cashmere coat that probably cost more than Nora made in 6 months. "Miss Chen, I need you to understand something before we proceed." He stood at the open door of Unit 447, not yet entering. "If what your photographs suggest is accurate, you're in possession of tools that the watchmaking community believed lost, possibly destroyed. Your grandfather's name isn't in any records I can find. He was a mechanic," Nora said. "Cars. Trucks. He owned Castellano's Auto Service for 30 years. And before that, I don't know. He came from Europe after the war. He didn't talk about it." Dr. Chen nodded slowly. He pulled on white cotton gloves and approached the third toolbox. "May I?" Nora unlocked it. He opened the first drawer and went completely still. His hands hovered over the tools like they might vanish. "Oh my God," he whispered. "It's real." If you're following Nora's story, hit subscribe, because what she discovers next will change everything. Dr. Chen worked for 3 hours. He examined each tool with a jeweler's loupe, photographing, measuring, occasionally making small sounds of disbelief. Nora sat on an overturned bucket, watching, understanding nothing. Finally, he sat back. "Ms. Chen, your grandfather owned one of the most significant collections of master watchmaking tools in existence." This Leanhard said, "There are only 3 known to survive. This Daniel balance staff tool was owned by George Daniels himself. You can see his mark. These timing screws, these calipers, this staking set." He gestured helplessly. "Do you know anything about horology? I know people wear watches." He almost smiled. "These tools were used to create the most complicated mechanical watches in history. Tourbillons, perpetual calendars, minute repeaters. Each tool is handmade, precise to microns. Masters spent lifetimes perfecting single techniques. Your grandfather somehow acquired the complete workshop of what must have been multiple master watchmakers. Are they valuable?" Valuable. Dr. Chen looked at her like she'd asked if the ocean was damp. Miss Chen, I'm prepared to offer you $300,000 right now for the Daniels tool alone. The number didn't register. Nora heard it, but it stayed outside her, refusing to mean anything. 300,000. That's a starting point. For one tool. But you need a proper authentication and appraisal. May I make some calls? She nodded, numb. He stepped outside. Nora sat alone with the toolboxes. The first two, the regular mechanic tools, suddenly looked different. Were they a disguise? Camouflage for the real treasure? She opened the fourth toolbox, the one she'd barely examined. More watchmaking tools. Beneath them, wrapped in oiled cloth, were pocket watches. Dozens of them. She lifted one carefully. Gold casing. Crystal face. Moving parts visible through the back, turning and clicking in hypnotic precision. Dr. Chen returned, breathing hard. 3 colleagues are flying in tonight. One from London. We'll need to move everything to a secure facility. I've arranged transport. But Ms. Chen, and I cannot stress this enough, do not tell anyone what you have. The watch collecting world is small and competitive. If word gets out before proper authentication, I won't tell anyone. Nora thought of Aaron's laugh, Kristen's condescending sympathy. No one would believe me anyway. The secure facility was a vault in Midtown, climate-controlled and monitored. Nora signed papers she'd barely read, her hands shaking. Dr. Chen's colleagues arrived. A woman from London with an iPad and fierce intensity. A Swiss man who spoke in hushed German on the phone. A younger American who kept saying unprecedented, like a prayer. They worked through the night. Nora dozed in a leather chair, dreaming of orange eviction notices that multiplied and covered everything. At 6 a.m., Dr. Chen woke her gently. Ms. Chen. Nora, we've completed preliminary authentication on the tools and the watches. We need to discuss what happens next. She sat up, her neck aching. How much? The tools alone. The complete collection represents virtually every significant watchmaking technique from 1850 to 1960. Conservative auction estimate, $12 to $15 million. Nora's vision blurred. Million. The watches are more complicated. Your grandfather had 37 pocket watches and wristwatches. 22 are museum quality. Ferrari by Abraham Louis Breguet, the master of masters. One is a Patek Philippe that was commissioned in 1923 and never delivered. It's been missing for 90 years. How much? Nora heard herself ask again. If we auction the complete collection properly, tools, watches, and provenance research, you're looking at a conservative estimate of $70 to $85 million. The room tilted. Nora gripped the chair arms. That's not possible. It's unprecedented, but possible. The watch collecting market has exploded in the last decade. Middle Eastern buyers, Asian collectors, tech billionaires who want the rarest of the rare. Your grandfather assembled something that shouldn't exist. Nora thought of him in his garage, door closed, radio playing. Who was he? We're researching that. The tools have markings suggesting they came from workshops in Switzerland, Germany, and France. Post-war acquisition, likely estate sales and liquidations. Your grandfather may have been buying up the tools of dead masters, watchmakers whose families didn't understand their value. Like Grandpa Lou's family didn't understand his. Like her family didn't understand hers. Nora stood on shaking legs. I need to see my daughter. I need to. The room spun. Dr. Chen caught her elbow. When did you last eat? She couldn't remember. Yesterday morning? The day before? He guided her to a chair. Someone brought coffee in Danish. Nora ate mechanically, the food sitting heavy in her hollow stomach. Around her, experts discussed lot divisions and auction house strategies. The Swiss man argued for Christie's. The London woman insisted Phillips had better watch collector connections. Nora's phone buzzed. Linda, everything okay? Emma's asking for you. I need to go, Nora said. My daughter. We're staying with a friend. I need to, of course. Dr. Chen handed her a business card. This is my personal number. I'm proposing we act as your advisors through this process. Standard 15% commission. We'll handle authentication, marketing, auction house negotiations, everything. You focus on your family. 15% of 80 million was 12 million. Nora almost laughed. These people would make more from commission than she'd earn in 10 lifetimes of diner shifts and data entry. But she'd still walk away with 70 million. Okay, she whispered. Yes, do it. The next weeks blurred. Nora moved through them like sleepwalking. She kept her diner shifts. Quitting would raise questions. She worked data entry in Linda's living room after Emma went to sleep. She told no one, especially not her family. Aaron texted, "Sold the coin collection. $52,000. Pop would be proud. How's the scrap metal situation?" Preston called. "Used Grandpa's money for the kitchen. You should see the marble. How much did you get for those old tools?" Nora replied to neither. Dr. Chen called every few days with updates. The Patek Philippe had been authenticated by 3 independent experts. Christie's and Sotheby's were in a bidding war for the right to auction. A documentary filmmaker wanted to tell the story. A museum in Switzerland wanted to acquire the complete tool collection for permanent display. "We're recommending auction," Dr. Chen said. "September sale. Gives us time to build provenance, market the story." The Castellano collection, a master mechanic's secret life as a horology scholar. "It's romantic. It'll drive prices up." "Whatever you think," Nora said. She was sitting on Linda's fire escape, watching Emma play in the courtyard below. 7 years old. Still young enough to believe everything would be okay. "Nora, I need to ask you something." Dr. Chen's voice was careful. "What are you going to do with the money?" She'd thought about nothing else. "I'm going to disappear." "Disappear?" "Buy a house somewhere quiet. Put Emma in a good school. Never worry about eviction notices again." She paused. "And I'm going to finish my degree. Before Marcus, before Emma, before everything fell apart." Nora had been studying mechanical engineering. She'd loved the precision of it, the way math turned into objects you could hold. She'd been 2 semesters from graduating when she got pregnant. "That's it." Dr. Chun sounded surprised. "Most people, this kind of money. Most people didn't spend 3 years choosing between food and electricity. Most people didn't carry their daughter's belongings in garbage bags to a friend's couch." Nora watched Emma spin in circles, arms out, face to the sun. "I don't need yachts. I need safety. You're going to be an extraordinary steward of this inheritance." Nora wasn't sure about that, but she knew what Grandpa Lou would want. He'd lived small and careful, keeping his secrets, doing his work. He'd seen her, really seen her, when everyone else looked away. She'd honor that. She'd live well, but quietly, and she'd never forget what desperate felt like. The auction was scheduled for September 15th at Christie's, New York. Nora wore a navy dress she'd bought specifically for this, the first clothing purchase in 2 years that wasn't from Goodwill. Emma sat beside her in a velvet chair, clutching a stuffed rabbit, eyes wide at the chandeliers. "Mom, this place is fancy. Very fancy, baby." Dr. Chin sat to Nora's left, tablet glowing with remote bids already coming in. Asian preview brought huge interest. "We're expecting strong competition." The room filled with collectors, dealers, and curious watchers. Nora recognized faces from the research she'd done: a Saudi prince's representative, a Silicon Valley CEO who collected complications, a museum director from Geneva. Lot 301, the auctioneer began. The Daniels Balance Staff tool from the Castellano collection. Opening bid, $400,000. Paddles rose. The price climbed, 500, 600, 800,000. Nora's hands shook. This was one tool. One. Sold for $1.2 million. Emma gasped. Nora squeezed her hand. It continued for 6 hours. The Leonhard chronometer set brought $3.4 million. A complete staking set from 1890 sold for $800,000. The 4 Breguet watches were the evening's peak. The rarest brought $18.7 million, selling to a phone bidder after a tense 5-minute war. But the Patek Philippe was the crown jewel. The auctioneer let silence build before announcing it. Lot 347, the Patek Philippe Grand Complication Pocket Watch, commissioned 1923, never delivered, discovered in the Castellano collection. Opening bid, $10 million. The room erupted. Paddles everywhere. Phone lines lighting up. The price climbed in million-dollar increments, 15, 20, 25. Nora stopped breathing. At 40 million, only 2 bidders remained. The Saudi representative and a phone bidder Dr. Chun identified as a Hong Kong collector. 42 million, 45 million, 48 million. The Saudi shook his head out. The room held its breath. Sold for $48 million. The applause was thunderous. Nora sat frozen, unable to process. Dr. Chen leaned over. That's the third highest price ever paid for a watch at auction. Nora, do you understand what just happened? She shook her head. Total for the evening, $87.3 million. After auction fees and our commission, you'll net approximately $68 million. Nora excused herself and walked on shaking legs to the bathroom. She locked herself in a stall and cried. Huge, gasping sobs that left her breathless. 3 years of terror. 3 years of choosing between medicine and food. 3 years of orange notices and apologizing to Emma for things beyond her control. Done. She washed her face, fixed her makeup, and returned to find Emma showing Dr. Chen her stuffed rabbit. This is Mr. Hoppy. He's been with us since before we had to leave our apartment. Dr. Chen's eyes met Nora's over Emma's head. Understanding passed between them. 2 weeks later, Nora stood in the kitchen of her new house, a 3-bedroom craftsman in a quiet suburb with good schools. Emma's backpack hung by the door, ready for her first day at a school where she'd have art class and music and a library. Nora's acceptance letter from the university sat on the counter. She'd re-enrolled in mechanical engineering. She'd finish her degree. But first, she had a phone call to make. Aaron answered on the 3rd ring. Nora? What's up? You never call. I wanted to tell you something about Grandpa's tools. The ones you scrapped? Yeah, Kristen said you probably got a few $100. Better than nothing, I guess. I didn't scrap them. I auctioned them. At Christie's. Silence. The collection sold for $87 million. I netted $68 million. She heard Aaron breathing. Then, that's not funny. It's not a joke. Google Castellano Collection Christie's. I'll wait. She heard keyboard clicking. Then nothing. Then, holy shit. You can't. I can. And I did. I'm calling because I want you to understand something. When you laughed at me in that lawyer's office, when you called Grandpa's life's work garbage, you showed me exactly who you are. Nora, come on. We didn't know. Grandpa knew. He knew you'd never look deeper than surface value. He knew Kristen would cash out for granite countertops. He knew I'd hold on. He knew I'd understand that precision matters more than shine. You have to share. That's not fair. We're family. Family is what you make it. And you made it clear I don't belong in yours. Nora's voice was steady. Goodbye, Aaron. She hung up, blocked his number. Did the same with Kristen when she called 5 minutes later. Some bridges deserved burning. That evening, Nora stood at Emma's bedroom door, watching her daughter arrange stuffed animals on a real bed in a real room that no one could take away. The late September light made everything golden. Mom, Emma looked up. Is this really ours? Forever. Forever, baby. Because of Grandpa Lou's tools. Because Grandpa Lou saw something valuable that everyone else called junk. Nora sat on the bed. He taught me that lesson. And now I'm teaching you. Emma curled into her side. I miss him. Me too. They sat in comfortable silence, watching dust motes dance in the evening light. Nora's phone buzzed. Dr. Chen, checking in. The Swiss Museum had made a final offer to acquire the complete tool collection for permanent display. $5 million for the whole set, to be known as the Castellano Workshop, a shrine to precision and patience and the quiet work of mastery. Nora had accepted. Some things were worth more than their auction price. Grandpa Lou's legacy would teach new generations of watchmakers. His tools would continue the work of precision he'd valued above all else. In her back pocket, she carried the one thing she'd kept, a small brass caliper, worn smooth from use. It measured tolerances down to thousandths of an inch. Grandpa Lou had used it every day. Now Nora would carry it through engineering school, a reminder that precision matters. That patience pays off. That being overlooked doesn't mean being worthless. Emma fell asleep against her shoulder. Nora carried her to bed, tucked her in, and walked to her own room. The house was quiet. Safe. Hers. She opened her laptop and pulled up her class schedule. Calculus. Physics. Material science. She'd failed once. Dropped out pregnant and scared and sure she'd destroyed her life. But failure wasn't final. Grandpa Lou had taught her that too. He'd come to America with nothing, built a life as a mechanic, and secretly assembled one of the most valuable collections in horological history. If he could do that, she could finish a degree. In the drawer of her nightstand sat Grandpa Lou's letter, discovered in the bottom of the 4th toolbox. She'd read it so many times she'd memorized it, but she pulled it out anyway. Nora, if you're reading this, you kept the tools. I knew you would. Your brother wants easy money. Your sister wants status, but you understand what really matters. I bought my first watchmaking tool at an estate sale in 1952. The family was selling their grandfather's belongings, a watchmaker who died alone. They sold me his complete workshop for $20. I'd never made a watch in my life, but I recognized precision when I saw it. I spent 50 years collecting, learning, understanding. Every estate sale, every auction, I looked for the tools everyone else ignored. The delicate instruments that built empires of time. I kept it secret because people like us, people who see value in the discarded, we get mocked. Your mother mocked my junk. Your father called it hoarding. But I knew. I'm leaving this to you because you're the only one who won't quit. When Marcus left, everyone said you should give up, move home, accept defeat. You didn't. You worked yourself to exhaustion for Emma. That's the Castellano precision. Use this money to build something that matters. Show Emma that women like us don't break. We bend, we endure, and eventually, we prove everyone wrong. All my love, Grandpa Lou. Nora folded the letter carefully and returned it to the drawer. Outside, the suburban street was quiet. Middle-class houses with middle-class cars, a world away from eviction notices and fire escapes. She'd made it. Not to the finish line, there wasn't one, not really. But to safety, to possibility, to a place where Emma could grow up knowing stability, and Nora could become who she'd always meant to be. Her phone buzzed one more time. Linda, thinking of you. Proud of you. Coffee soon. Definitely, Nora typed back. I'm buying. She smiled, turned off her light, and lay in the darkness of her own home. Tomorrow she'd register Emma for soccer, schedule her first classes, maybe buy furniture that wasn't secondhand. But tonight, she let herself rest. Let herself feel the weight of 3 years of terror finally lift. Let herself imagine Grandpa Lou in his garage, carefully measuring tolerances, building precision from chaos, proving that patience and knowledge could turn junk into empires. The rusty toolbox everyone mocked had held $87 million in secrets. But more than that, it had held proof that being dismissed wasn't the same as being worthless. That seeing what others miss is its own form of mastery. And that sometimes, the people everyone overlooks are the ones who change everything.